"Jamie, get inside this instant!" Miss Brookstone yelled, looking out into the tree-filled plain with the former Preformer's Playhouse behind all those fir trees. Jamie was standing in that field, jumping in the puddles and mud in her plain gray shirt and slightly ripped blue jeans, ends covered in dark splashes of water. Her hot pink running shoes were now damp pink, and a random spots still bright pink from where the water didn't hit. Jamie's long and curly dark brown hair swished from her back onto her face while jumping from one puddle of water to the next. Her thin-framed circle glasses jumped on her nose. Jamie didn't care about her mother calling her in. She loved the rain ever since her mother first went outside with her to get some groceries on a rainy day. Jamie looked at her mother and stuck out her tongue. "No!" Miss Brookstone rolled her eyes in an annoying manner, walking past the doorway and walking up the stairs to her daughter's room. Jamie stopped for a moment, looking from her mom, then decided that she had left and went back to jumping in the puddles. About a minute later, Miss Brookstone came back to the doorway, holding a rectangular object in her hand. Jamie turned her head and looked at her mother's hand and couldn't make out what she was holding. Miss Brookstone moved her arm back and threw the object to land in one of the mud puddles about 13 feet away from her daughter. Jamie stopped jumping and went to pick up the object. "Mom!" she groaned. The object had been Jamie's favorite book, Horror Stories, by Jaslyn Matrell. Jaslyn was one of the most famous horror story writers, also Jamie's favorite author in the whole world. Jaslyn had also been the writer of Sinister Toys series, which had won a Caldecott Medal, which honors the artist for most distinguishable American picture book for children. Jamie lived in California, and she never wanted to move, for she lived close to the Preformer's Playhouse. The book was covered in so much mud that you couldn't see the title of it. Jamie opened the book to see if the pages were fine, but the mud had slipped into them. "I kept telling you to not mess with this thing," Jamie murmured under her breath as she stood up onto her feet. "What did you say, young dear?" "Please repeat that so I can hear you more clearly," Mother said in a squeaky voice, leaning forward with her hand cupped over her ear, brushed past her short, bushy black hair. Jamie's mother was sarcastic often. She made it seem like she was a good mom, but when she didn't really care about anything but her beauty. Jamie walked inside into the big beige apartment house she lived in. Jamie walked up the open-faced marble stairs to a long hallway out into the open. It was glass, and when Jamie looked under her feet, she saw a miniature forest with tiny tree saplings that she had planted with her mother when they first had moved into the apartment building, back when her mother cared about her well-being. The rain fell on the leaves of the big, damp green trees and shrubs. Jamie loved the pitter-patter. It helped her keep her calm and easy. Jamie watched her mother's brown hair get darker with the rain. Her mother's hair went down to the back of her shoulders. It was slightly curly at the end with light brown highlights. "So, Jamie began. She got nervous when she tried to talk to her mother, because she got set off easily, especially when Jamie asked her for something. "It's my 11th birthday." Miss Brookstone turned her head to her daughter in a fashionista manner. She gave Jamie a confused look. So what?" Jamie paused and stuttered. So what are we going to do for today?" Miss Brookstone gave out an annoyed sigh. "I forgot." "I'll order a chocolate cake." Jean was sad, but also slightly surprised. Had her mother completely forgot that it was her birthday because she said that she will, but not that she had? Plus, Jamie didn't even really like chocolate. One time at her best friend, Amber's, birthday party, she had gotten a strawberry chocolate candy. She tried it, and she almost threw up. Her cake wouldn't even be worth it. "Mommy," Jamie began. "Mother." Jamie cleared her throat. "Mother, I don't like chocolate." "I don't like it, and the cake will be a waste of her mother interrupted. Shut up before I decide to give you nothing at all. Jamie put her head down and nodded. She felt her eyes getting watery. Jamie was such a crybaby. It was just sounds. They can't make her feel things. Or they shouldn't. Jamie looked at her for a moment to look for her apartment. She turned her head to the left and saw her red clay-colored apartment. Her daffodil in a little white flower pot on the windowsill sat about 2 feet away from the door. Jamie's mother never liked flowers. She always said that they were too bright. Jamie and her mother turned to the left and walked up to the door. Miss Brookstone pulled out the key and eyed the flower and stuck her tongue out, as if the flower was a real thing. She turned her head back to the door and opened the door with a click and a whoosh. Jamie followed her mother down the wood-floored hallway into the kitchen. It was a small kitchen, with everything painted bright white, with a small corner sink with a little window above it. Miss Brookstone stood in front of the cabinet and to the right of the sink, and got out a piece of bubble gum and started to chew it. She blew 3 bubbles, a small one, big one, and then another small one. She grabbed her phone that she had set down on the counter and started looking at posts. "Mother?" Jamie asked, looking up at her mom. "What?" Miss Brookstone snapped. Jamie took a step back. "May we go to Preformer's Playhouse family pizza place for my birthday? I really want to see Freddy Girl. She's my favorite." "No." "Please?" "No." "Please?" "No." "Please?" "No." "Please." Jamie's mother sighed. "Fine, but you can only invite Amber, no one else." Jamie slightly jumped. Her mother really agreed? Jamie went back down the hallway and turned to the right into her room. The room had mint-green walls and 3 windows, one on each wall. The red bed had a drawer next to it with a white night light on top of it with a pink hedgehog sitting on the table. The wooden Lego table that sat in the left corner of the room had half-destructed Lego sets with all random pieces all over the place and the floor around it, with a tiny room as a dressing room with a set of drawers holding Jamie's clothes. Jamie ran into the dressing room. After a few moments, she came out wearing her favorite outfit, a pink shirt with a white stripe, wearing her favorite pair of blue jeans, a dark purple hair clip, and her hair in a ponytail. She went over to her hedgehog plushie and kissed its forehead before hearing the ring of the rusty doorbell. Jamie put on her black pair of shoes and rushed across the hallway to the area in front of the door when she saw her mother had already gotten to the door for Amber. Amber was about the same height as Jamie, with piercing green eyes and golden red hair. She was wearing a purple short dress with white shorts. She stood there alone. Jamie looked out of the window above her Lego table in her room and to see Amber's mother's black car in front of the apartment complex. Jamie went back to see Amber. "Bestie!" she said as they threw her hands up. "Amber!" Jamie said, and leaned in for a hug, which Amber happily agreed. Miss Brookstone rolled her eyes in an annoying manner. "So you changed the party to Preformer's Playhouse pizza place?" Amber asked, hoping that she had gotten the news right. "Yeah, I really want to see Freddy Girl. I love her. She's my favorite," Jamie said happily. "I like her too. We should also go see Sing Sister. Have you heard her voice? She's so pretty and smoothing," Amber replied. Sing Sister and Freddy Girl were her favorite animatronics. Trickler and Barry weren't really their type. "We need to go." Miss Brookstone took a hold of Jamie's hand and pulled her along with her out to the door. Amber quietly followed the two into Jamie's mom's car. The 2 girls sat in the back of the seats. After a bit of whispering about the animatronics, Mrs. Brookstone got annoyed with the whispering. "Shut up!" she yelled. Amber and Jamie went silent. Miss Brookstone's mad voice was very intimidating. Jamie and Amber straightened up their hands in their lap, as if they were being put in order for a show. Amber smirked at Jamie, showing how happy she was that Jamie made the decision to switch from having an at-home birthday party to one at Preformer's Playhouse, and Jamie smiled back at her. It was unbelievable that her mother would be okay with the decision, because Jamie knew that her mother was hesitant on spending money for her child to have a few seconds of happiness. After a minute or two, the three of them arrived at the pizzeria. Jamie and Anna jumped out of the car and rushed to the entrance, while their mother wasn't as enthusiastic. When the two girls were inside the pizzeria, it was even better than when they had Amber's party there. There were new games and every animatronic was as shiny as ever. The prize counter had many new toys, including a new and improved version of the Freddy Girl plush that Jamie had wanted, ever since 4 months before her birthday. They were also seeing sister dolls, but they were too small and creepy looking for Jamie. She thought that the smile was too wide and they had too many teeth, plus the eyes seemed a bit off. Jamie looked at the ticket count for the Freddy Girl plush, high up on its platform. 1,200 tickets? That's impossible to get, Jamie thought. Even back when she had won the skee ball, the highest ticketed game, she had only won 100 tickets. And now she had to get up to 1,200? This is so unfair. What do they think we are? Master throwers from the Olympics? Jamie thought. She put her head down in despair. She could only buy it for $15, but to Jamie, that was $1 million. How would she get that much money? She wouldn't be able to open up a stand with food or drinks. Her mother wouldn't approve. If she asked her mom for money, she might get fed up and take her and Amber home. Jamie turned around to tell Amber when she had stepped into an extra cheesy pepperoni piece of pizza, which had just ruined her sneakers. Jamie sighed. Again? She looked around and spotted a brown-haired boy running from her direction with a party hat on, with a blue paper plate with nothing on it except some remains of pizza and cheese and crust crumbs. Hey, kid! Jamie yelled to him. The kid stopped and turned around. Jamie pointed down at her shoe, dipped in pizza, and the kid's eyes followed. He paused for a moment, then stared at Jamie blankly. After a moment of silence, the little 7-year-old skipped away with a happy smile on his face, over to Trickler's stage down the hallway. Stupid kid, Jamie thought. Does he think I'm a janitor? Jamie eventually found Amber, over in the hallway that connected the dining room, singing stage, Freddy Girl performance stage, Trickler tricks, and berry buns. Looking at Sing Sister stage through the doorway. Jamie rolled her eyes. You really like her, do you? Amber snapped back into reality and looked at Jamie. What? She's cool and an amazing singer. Have you ever heard her sing? I don't really care. Have you seen Freddy Girl do her duet with Aldo? Jamie smirked back. Amber stood up and faced Jamie. She shook her head. No, I haven't. But so? Jamie shrugged. She and Amber spotted Mrs. Brookstone walk into the building. My mom's here, Jamie said. She and Amber walked over to Mrs. Brookstone. Mrs. Brookstone pulled out a tiny slip of paper from her back pocket. She inspected it, as if she were trying to read something when she needed glasses. Table 13, Freddy Girl Performance Stage Room, she said. That must be our table, Jamie suggested. She and Amber went down the hallway, down into that Freddy Girl Performance Stage Room. Beat you there, Amber bet. She knew that she was slower than Jamie, but she had practice for getting onto the softball team. You're on, Jamie replied. The two kids sped down the hallway and almost tripped when turning into the performance room. As always, Jamie won again. Amber was a few feet behind her when she had stopped. Flash, Jamie stated. Slow poke, Jamie added. Amber had always been the slower one. Jamie had been naturally fast. Jamie's eyes wandered off to the Freddy Girl performance. She was doing a duet with Aldo, a bunny who always sang with Freddy Girl on Fridays. Jamie loved their duets. Mrs. Brookstone pulled out a tiny slip of paper from her back pocket. She inspected it, as if she were trying to read something when she needed glasses. Table 13, Freddy Girl Performance Stage Room, she said. That must be our table, Jamie suggested. She and Amber went down the hallway, down to the Freddy Girl Performance Stage Room. Be you there, Amber bet. She knew that she was slower than Jamie, but she had practiced for getting onto the school softball team. You're on, Jamie replied. The two kids sped down the hall and almost tripped when turning into the performance room. As always, Jamie won again. Amber was a few feet behind Jamie when she had stopped. Flash, Amber stated. Slowpoke, Jamie added. Amber had always been the slower one, and Jamie had been naturally fast. Jamie's eyes wandered off onto the Freddy Girl performance. She was singing a duet with Aldo, a bunny who always sang with Freddy Girl on Fridays. Jamie loved their duets. Amber looked at her BFF with a look that says, "Seriously, girl?" Jamie was caught staring at the bear and bunny in awe. They were amazing, shiny, and just perfect from Jamie's perspective. Jamie had to admit, though, that when she looked at Freddy Girl, she had a small creeped-out feeling, but only a bit. Today, it was a bit stronger, but Jamie pushed it down and focused on the duet singing. Jamie's mother finally walked into the room with an unamused expression. Jamie and Amber turned their head to look at her. Miss Brookstone looked around the room and tables, when she stopped and stared at a party table which had the sign that said 13. "Come on," Miss Brookstone said. She and the kids walked over to the party table. The three of them put on one party hat. Soon, a Performer's Playhouse employee walked up to them. Her name tag suggested that her name was Joanne. She wore a bright pink and purple shirt with long sleeves, and an image of Singing Sister and Freddy Girl on the front, smiling in a greeting manner. Jamie was really like that shirt, probably just because it had Freddy Girl on it. "Welcome to Performer's Playhouse Family Pizza Place, where imagination and fun come to life for your enjoyment. How is everyone? How are you?" Joanne looked at her clipboard she was holding on. "Jamie, having a good time?" Jamie looked at his shoe with pizza sauce and cheese on it. "Well, I stepped in a slice of pizza." "Oh no, dear. May I see?" Jamie nodded her head in a yes manner. Joanne walked over from her side of the table to Jamie and looked at her dirty shoe. "Oh no," she said. "I'll be right back. Hold on, Jamie." Jamie didn't really feel comfortable having a stranger call her by her name. It sounded off. Jamie never referred to her as Joanne, but if she did, she'd probably be uncomfortable too. Jamie looked at her mother. She had a very unamused face, and it was clear that she didn't want to be there, especially at this late hour. Miss Brookstone looked at the animatronics in slight disgust and horror. Why do kids like these monsters? She thought. The appearance was just a bit off. The thought of robotic animals doing human things for their enjoyment was just a bit unsettling. Joanne walked back into the room with a small box, big enough to hold a small puppy. She walked over and bent down next to Jamie, then opened the small cardboard box. Inside was a pair of bright blue and pink striped shoes. They had purple images and faces of Freddy Girl's cartoon face. Jamie had recognized the face from the Freddy Girl shirt at the prize counter. This was the same as with the other rooms, having the face and color scheme connect with the character. Because it was Friday and Freddy Girl was with Aldo, one of the shoes was green and yellow with the cartoon face of Aldo. Joanne took off Jamie's old gray shoes and slipped on the new ones. "There you go, kiddo," she said in fake excitement. Jamie was smart enough to know that she was only being cheery for her job, so that people would think that the place was bright and want to come back. Jamie was a pretty smart kid for her age, but never gotten 100% on every grade in school. Joanne stood up and smiled at Jamie as she stared at her new shoes. They were so cool and comfy. Jamie loved them so much that she decided to never take them off again. This was why she liked Performer's Playhouse. Joanne gave Mrs. Brookstone a look with eyebrows raised, like she was looking to get something out of her. Miss Brookstone pulled out a hand over her eyes with heavy bags and rubbed them hard, then sighed a tired sigh. She ran her hand through her old dirty hair and pulled out the wallet, then pulled out a $20 bill and handed it to Joanne. Joanne smiled, nodded, and took the bill and stuffed it into her pocket. Jamie looked up and caught a glimpse of what was happening. She realized that Joanne was basically forcing her mother to buy the shoes. Was this even legal? Jamie felt a tick of magic leaving the place. Amber and Jamie looked at the shiny animatronic duet. They were singing a beautiful song that went, "Welcome to a magical place that you'll never want to leave. The magic here is amazing, and imagination comes to life. Jamie listened to the song closely. Imagination? He thought. So are they saying that this place isn't real? Well, I'm going too deep into this. It's just a song. Maybe they mean that this place is magical and fun? A new employee came in a few minutes later, this time being a tall man with black hair and green eyes. A man whose name seemed to be Joseph, and walked behind the Freddy Girl animatronic, and she stopped singing, as well as Aldo. After a few moments and some bleeps and bloops, Freddy Girl lifted her head again, and Joseph left the stage. "Hello there, kids," she said, as the kids turned their heads to the animatronic. "It's someone's birthday today. Do you know who that is? She's out here in the crowd." All the kids went silent. They had no clue. A lot of birthday kids were in the room. "It's..." She paused. "Jamie," Aldo added on. It sounded like one of those programs where it's all the same and you enter your name, so it sounds like it was made especially for you. Jamie knew that it was cheesy, but tried to focus on the performance. Joanne came into the kitchen door and carried a vanilla cake on a platter. She walked and stood in front of Jamie and set down the plate on the table. Jamie looked down at the cake. In purple frosting, it said, "Happy birthday to Jamie!" Cheese, Jamie thought. Another one of those fill-in sentences. Joanne cut the cake into 6 pieces, even though there were only 3 people. All the kids in the room lost interest and turned back to what they were doing. After Jamie and Amber finished their first piece, Amber said, "So I got you a gift." Miss Brookstone lifted her head and raised an eyebrow at Amber. Amber looked under the table, and so did Jamie. Amber pulled out a little golden pink wrapped box, the size of a shoebox that Joanne had brought over earlier. Jamie took the box in her hands and looked at her mother, then back up at the box. She took off the wrapping, and it showed to be a little purple-colored box under all of it. Jamie lifted up the box's lid and gasped. Was it this that she thought? Yes, it was. Inside the box was a Freddy Girl plushie, sitting down and looking up at Jamie. Jamie carefully picked up the doll by the armpits and hugged it so hard that she thought it might pop. Miss Brookstone wasn't as happy as Jamie. She actually looked quite mad that she had gotten it. She glared at Amber and turned her head confused. Mrs. Brookstone stood up and speed-walked to Jamie's side. Jamie loosened her grip on the plush, and her mother took it out of her hands. "Hey!" Jamie yelled, looking at her mother walk next to the doorway from the room to the hall at the garbage can. She's not going to, Jamie thought, when her mom then dropped the plush into the garbage can, into the candy bar wrappers, and all the cake paper plates. "Mom!" Jamie yelled, making a scene. Most of the kids turned their head or stayed silent. Amber was close to tears. She had been her most special gift to her BFF, and now it was thrown away in just a second. Jamie's mother walked back to the table and grabbed Amber's and Jamie's arms, then practically dragged them over to the doorway. Jamie managed to get loose of her mother's grip, and she somehow didn't seem to notice. Jamie poked her head out of the doorway to see Mother and Amber leaving without a clue that Jamie wasn't with them. Jamie saw one of the kids leaving, and just assumed that their party had been over. Not a big deal. Jamie dug through the trash can and found the Freddy Girl plushie, but it had stains and who knows what on it. Jamie decided that she needed to clean it, but where was any water? The kitchen. Jamie snuck past all the kids on the party tables and yelling children to the red curtain that separated the performance room and the kitchen. She looked around to make sure that no one was watching, then ducked behind the curtain into the kitchen. Jamie quietly wandered around until she found a little sink that she was sure was made for cleaning the dishes. She took the plushie and dunked it into the water of the sink and mixed it around. Jamie heard a thump, thump, thump of footsteps. She quickly swished around the plushie and covered her in a nearby towel that was hanging on a rack, even though she knew that it would make even more noise to attract 2 times as much attention. Jamie heard the footsteps grow closer, so she jumped to the other side of the red curtain and fell into the pit. She got up and realized that no one was in it, and then carefully stepped out, trying not to make any noise. Jamie slid into the singing stage performance room, where Singing's sister performed and the other children. She made sure that no one was watching from the other room, then Jamie slipped into the singing stage and ran behind it. Jamie sighed and pulled the Freddy Girl plushie from behind her back. "I don't know why my mother dislikes you, Freddy Girl plush. I love you," she said, then hugged the plushie as tight as she possibly could. Jamie started moving the plushie with her hands to simulate her singing the cheesy fill-in song that she had earlier, then started to get sucked into a song that she had made herself about her life, and that she was making to a Freddy Girl song. "Hello, mother, leave me alone. How are you today? Leave me alone. I love you, mother, I hate you. Just go away, I don't care what you do. Mother leaves, she doesn't care. I have anxiety, I rip out my hair. BFF continue, I'll forgive. Mother throws it away and never starts to sniff." Jamie took a second to reflect on her life. How would it come to this? She zoned out for a moment. Jamie snapped back into reality, then remembered what she was doing. After a while, Jamie got bored of playing with the Freddy Girl plush. "Have they not noticed me? And do Amber and Mother even know that I'm gone?" Jamie thought. She focused back on what she'd do next. How was she going to get home? Were they worried? When would she even go back? What would her mother do to her when she got back? Jamie stopped worrying and thought about what she would do right now. Then a bright idea came into Jamie's mind. What if I go to see the real animatronic up close? Jamie stood up and walked through the hallway, then realized that no one was in the performance stage. Jamie stepped into the room and ducked behind the closed curtain to see Freddy Girl next to Aldo, both of them powered off. Jamie peeked around the animatronic. When she noticed some buttons on the back of her, Jamie walked behind the Freddy Girl and looked around the buttons. There was a red button and 4 little buttons. She looked around them, wondering which one to press. It would have been very useful if the designer added captions for labels. Jamie took a random guess and pressed the 3rd button on her back. She didn't know what it would do. Why would she? Did she make or design the animatronic? No. The bear lifted its head and looked at Jamie. Jamie looked into the bear's eyes and got confused. She had been told that when the animatronic was turned on or moving, its eyes were green, but in this case, they were black, like when they were turned off. Must be a defect or out of ink or something. Jamie thought. "Would you like to hear me sing?" the bear suddenly asked, and Jamie jumped a little bit. "I have a special song for you, Jamie," it added. Jamie knew that this was yet another one of those fill-in sentences that the staff probably couldn't fit in the performance, probably because it was getting late. Yet, this time, the bear sounded more human-like and less like a product of engineering. "Sounds cool," she thought. "Okay, I do want to see," Jamie said to the animatronic. Pretty Girl reached her hand out toward Jamie, in a gesture that says, "Take my hand, and I'll show you." Jamie slowly put her hand into the other, feeling a little thing that said, "Be careful, Jamie. It might have a glitch or something." The bear gripped its hand slightly tightly, making sure that she'd stay with her. Freddy Girl walked to the door that had a sign that said, "Storage," and little text, "Employees only. No customers must enter." Jamie eyed the little text. What could be dangerous in a room where they keep spare parts and screws and bolts, she thought. The animatronic opened the door, which led into a small dark room, but still bright enough to see the surroundings, which in this case was boxes, shelves, and strangely, a little wooden stage. The stage had a microphone on a stand sitting in the center, like a comedian stage, but this wasn't Barry's stage room, surely. Freddy Girl walked to the back to the door and locked it. Why did she lock the door? This is getting creepy, Jamie thought. This was surely strange for an animatronic. this wasn't a glitch. It was moving by itself. It ran off from the commands and coding, and it started to do what it felt like doing. The lights flickered out. Now, this was getting creepy. A moment later, a spotlight shone atop the stage, showing Freddy Girl standing there, holding the microphone in her hands, eyes closed. "This song is for Jamie Brookstone," the animatronic called out. How did it know her last name? She didn't think that her mother would give the animatronic her first and last name, surely. Would she? No, she wouldn't. The animatronic sighed. If that was even possible for one to do. It lifted its head back up and stared straight into Jamie's soul, and smiled a sweet, innocent smile. But in this case, it was trying to be sweet, but it came out as unsettling and horrifying, enough to make Jamie start to cry and sweep up her breathing. Her heart pounded in her chest. What is it doing? What is it going to do? Why am I here? Is this the coding or a malfunction? What is going on? Jamie rapidly thought. So many thoughts were circling in her brain, so many that she couldn't think straight and went slightly lightheaded. The animatronic started to sing. Would you like to hear me sing? It sang. Jamie was confused, and it was an odd choice of words for a birthday song. It started to repeat the phrase over and over again, as if it were trying to mess with Jamie even more than she had already did. The animatronic's voice started to get more distorted and glitchy every single time it sang the phrase, so much that after her saying it 6 times, it sounded like static and radio glitching. Jamie limped over to the door handle. She started to jiggle it and try to open the door, desperately to try and get out of this hellhole. Jamie looked over her shoulder, and the animatronic was a few feet closer to her than it had before. She kept on trying to jiggle the handle, even though she knew that it would never work in this situation. It felt like the freaky bear had put on a super lock on it, making it completely impossible to ever get out of the room. The bear kept on singing, but by now, it was just glitching. It sounded like not singing anymore. She couldn't even tell what she was saying. That's how distorted the voice had gotten. Jamie's mind was racing with a million thoughts a second, trying to comprehend what was happening and what was going to happen. She looked over her shoulders to see the bear again a few feet closer to her than it had been the last time. The glitching was so loud and high-pitched that Jamie was about to go deaf. Why aren't there people here who hear her? Jamie thought in rage and confusion. Then she looked at a clock on the wall to her right. 8:10. Preformer's Playhouse closed at 8, Jamie thought. She was doomed and was going to die in a place that she had thought was full of fun and magic. But under the surface, it was dangerous and a murder trap. Lone kids into dark rooms were there to be killed. Jamie looked around, still jiggling the handle, and again, Predator was closer, but this time it was only about 15 feet away. Jamie's heart sped up, even though it had been at 1,000 beats per second by now. Jamie jiggled the hand so much that she heard one of the screws fall onto the checkerboard pattern floor. Oh no, Jamie thought. She knew that she was going to die that day, for sure. Jamie could hear the bear moving closer, and estimated that it was now 10 feet away from her. She stopped jiggling the handle, since she knew that it was no use, and would end up being the last thing that she ever did. She fixed her gravestone, saying, ending while jiggling the door handle. Jamie closed her eyes as tight as she could and focused on everything that had happened in her short life. A sharp pain passed through Jamie's back, and she dropped to the floor. Oh, scary enough for you? I'm joking, it actually wasn't really that scary. So, did you enjoy my beautiful voice reading it? I'm joking. I don't actually really like my voice, it's just like, I just don't like it. Okay, I gotta go now. KineMaster is being very laggy. This thing is 35 minutes long. Okay, bye.